and welcome to another episode of Universal Energies. My guest today is the very lovely Yvonne Davey-Croft. Pleased to meet you.
And you, Rob.
Before we start, let's say let's explain about what you do.
Okay, I'm a therapist and I now work with 3 therapies: emotional freedom technique, Indian head massage, and Rahani celestial healing.
Right. Okay. So let's say, can you tell us how you started in this? How did you get involved in this?
Okay, back in 2003 I found myself as a single mum. It wasn't something I planned. And in 2007 I was looking around, I needed to earn some money, keep a roof over our heads. So I was basically looking for a tool that would pay me an income. Trained in Indian head massage, and it started an amazing journey that I wasn't expecting.
Can you explain just a bit more about this journey?
Okay, after I'd qualified in Indian head massage, I asked a friend who's psychic if I could give her a treatment. I knew that she would be critical in a good way, and after the treatment I was all excited and I said, "What did you think?" She said, "Oh, that wasn't a relaxing treatment at all." And I was absolutely gutted. I said, "Why? What am I doing wrong? How can I improve it?" And she said, "Well, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing a healing treatment, you're channeling." And at the time I didn't understand channeling or anything like that. I came from a Christian background as a child, and all of the sort of taboo around tarot cards and channeling, all of that. So I had a lot of learning to do, and initially I went out and about doing my therapies at fairs and one-to-ones, and became very drained. So I then started doing psychic studies one-to-one and spiritual development, so that I could learn more about channeling, what I was doing, how I could not use my own energy so I didn't get drained, and it went on from there.
Good. You've touched on a Christian background, and we'll go into influences later on here. Okay. So you say it went on from there. So where do you actually operate? How do you? I was going to say where your trade, but it didn't sound very good. How do you actually operate and where?
Okay. I still work 3 or 4 fairs a year.
Right.
But mainly I work on Skype, so I'm available to anyone anywhere in the UK with the emotional freedom technique. I can do remote healing as well. Every Wednesday I'm at the Bank Community Arts Project in Eye, Suffolk, which is about an hour from Felixstowe. But I can also do Skype from there. They have a fabulous internet connection. And I do occasionally do home visits if somebody really can't get out and about. But I've also got a room I can hire at the Hub in Ipswich, so that's not far from Felixstowe.
So when you say you hiring a room at the Hub in Ipswich, is it for appointments? People make appointments? So
Yeah, everything I do is by appointment.
Right.
I also run a practitioner group in Bury St Edmunds, and a parents group starts up in September.
Busy lady.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You say that I get the impression, rightly or wrongly, that you don't really like one-to-one visits. Is that right?
I love working one-to-one, but home visits take a lot of time.
Right, okay.
So if I'm travelling an hour each direction for a home visit to help somebody, that's 3 hours out of my time. So although I don't mind giving my time, it does mean that I'm then not available so readily for other people.
Yeah, and I'm sure the viewers will understand, because at the end they'll comment you, so you can find out from there. Yeah. Okay. So can you explain how would you deliver your therapy? Just pick one and just tell me how you deliver this.
Right. Well, my favourite at the moment is the emotional freedom technique, because that has truly been life-changing. If I was treating you, we would meet, we'd have a little general chit-chat and a consultation, check whether there were any health issues I need to be aware of. Not as in-depth as if we were having an Indian head massage treatment, because it's not a physical therapy as such. I would explain to you that we would be tapping on the acupressure points, the same points that are used in things like acupuncture, reflexology. They're the points where the energy lines enter and exit the body. And then we would talk about the issue that you wanted to work on. I tend to specialise in emotional freedom technique you can use for pain and phobias and serious illnesses, all sorts of things, but I tend to specialise in overwhelm and preventing overwhelm. So I work in the area of stress, and that is a massive area. So it can be anything from a mum or a dad that's trying to get the kids to school, trying to get the dinner cooked, the house clean, doing a part-time job, all of that, juggling lots and lots of hats, to a business person that's trying to run a business and a home and isn't getting the balance in the business right. And not knowing how to say no, to people that just find their lives really, really stressful because they can't say no.
No, that's a lot of people can't say no.
And a lot of that goes back to childhood.
Yeah,
a lot
issues,
of patterns and issues that we have go back to pre-6 years old.
Yeah.
So we quite often find that we'll start working on one area, and as we tap and release the negative energies, the negative emotional energies around the subject, quite often you'll find other things are coming up. As you're clearing one issue, something else pops up into the mind, and then we have to make a decision whether that's something we want to work on now, or whether we want to keep where we are and make a note on it to work on it at a later point. So it's really fascinating.
I'm sure the viewers will understand that, but there are questions that arise from the viewers. You do 2 other therapies. Why do you pick on this one more than anything else?
Okay. Throughout my life, I found myself in emotional overwhelm. As a child, I've had an ongoing pattern which I'm working on. A lot of us have a main pattern in our lives, and mine was I was a pleaser. I wanted to make other people happy, and that was at the detriment of my own health. Sorry, throat chakra here playing up now because we're talking on issues.
I understand.
And you'll see I'm tapping just to clear some of this. So I've gone through various phases in my life. First divorce, childhood traumas, first divorce, childbirth wasn't the easiest thing in the world for me. Second divorce, custody battles. One of my children has emotional challenges, shall we say. And then my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And I found myself going from one overwhelmed situation to another. And I'd have a few years clear, and then something else would happen. And I never really learned to deal with things, to stop them getting to that point of overwhelm. And we all know once we're in overwhelm, we can't call on techniques like meditation and emotional freedom technique and other therapies like massage that would relax us and help us. We just can't call on those.
No.
So my mission in life is to help people by giving them tools that they can use so that they don't actually get to the overwhelm.
Yeah.
So because I mean, for instance, when my mother was dying, it was crazy. She had a lot of years with Alzheimer's, like all Alzheimer's sufferers do, and then at the click of fingers, she was more or less paralysed from the neck down, just in literally walking 10 yards from a chair to a door, and she couldn't take another step, and she never walked again. And from that evening, she could barely move her arms. She couldn't sit up, and within 9 months she had died. She starved to death. Awful thing. And I didn't realise until afterwards that I'd got to the stage over the years of having challenges with one of my sons and my mother's illness and being there for my dad, being the person that made the phone calls, sorted out the emergencies, that I'd actually got to the stage where I lived in stress all the time, so I didn't actually realise I was under stress.
No.
So it wasn't until I trained in emotional freedom technique, and my trainer Carl Dawson, who's one of the 28 founding masters in the whole of the world, said a lot of people are in stress so much every day, they get to the stage that it's a natural way of living.
Absolutely.
And they don't realise they're
Absolutely.
stressed. So yeah. And just jumping back, just after my mum died, which was only actually May 2015, I was still doing my Indian head massage, my healing. I was teaching meditation as well. I contacted a coach who's based in Australia. She's a Scot and she's an amazing lady, Joanna Turner, business coach. But she works in money blocks. And at the time, my biggest overwhelming challenge was money, because I'd spent so much time reacting to life. My business had started to go down the drain. I wasn't earning the money I need to keep up with all the bills, and everything was piling up. So many people have that issue now. And she actually put me on to Brad Yates because I couldn't afford her fees because money was one of my issues. She's a high-end coach, so we're talking quite a lot of money. Brad Yates is, I think he's American, don't think he's Canadian, but you know, over that way. And he does a lot of script videos for Emotional Freedom Technique. So I was using those, and he covers everything. That did not prepare me for when I went to training. So I thought, oh, wow, this has been quite beneficial at keeping the emotional lid on and not going into overwhelm. So I'd had a break for 4 months from self-employment, working for Sue Ryder in one of their retail places. And when that finished, it was a temporary contract. I went down to Brighton to train with Carl Dawson. And on the very first day, he said, who here uses tapping scripts? Because I put my hand up. I do. Thinking he'd say, well done. He's like, don't like them. And I'm like, well, why not? What's wrong with tapping scripts? He said they don't hit the real issue because they're not using your own words. And nothing prepared me for the power of Emotional Freedom Technique when you use your own words.
Absolutely.
So as a practitioner,
I do understand that.
going in there and using your own words, so powerful. And so now if I do use somebody's script, I treat them like they're a practitioner working with me, and I change the words so it suits me.
I mean, there's an old saying that a friend of mine, who was past the spirit now many years ago, but I trained under her, and this was way off in London, this was, but she used to say to me, she said, nothing that you have you can't sort out, nothing that you will ever be you can't do, and do not ever use the word can't or won't or will not. And at the end of the day, then I think we live in a society today whereby a lot of people want outside help to keep them on the road knowing what they're doing anyway. And unfortunately you touched on issues, and issues are, they can be inherent, they can be worked upon in from a young age through peer pressures and giving you that, or they can be transferred from one person to another. Whatever the situation is, the old saying is, just because Dad was an alcoholic does not mean to say that I will be the same. A scenario, of course, but having said that, and what you have just said, I'm sure will resonate with an awful lot of viewers when they see this. So be prepared to have some controversial comments that comes through there, which would be private, of course, they're all private. But having said that, then thank you so much for touching on that issue, because through a lot of interviews, this issue seems to come through of people's past. They're bringing it back, and they're bringing it back, and they're bringing it back. And thank you for being so open and what you have just said. Having said that, okay, so what influenced you in your life to be where you are now?
My mum was a massive influence. She's a fantastic woman, and I didn't really realise how brilliant she was until she got Alzheimer's disease and the way she dealt with it. Absolutely amazing woman. She always just got up and got on. Whatever life threw at her, she just got on and done it. And also another lady who I was friends with, who passed many years ago now, called Norma, and she had a very challenging life, but she had the most amazing attitude. And if she wanted something, she never went out and bought it. That's where her and I differ, because I'd like to go out and buy it quite a lot of the time. I don't have time to make everything, although I have a go. It's quite a lot of things. And she said to me, if someone else has done it, I can do it.
Ah,
I
brilliant.
may not do it as well,
Yeah.
but I can do it. And she
Brilliant.
did everything from painting to making her own concrete paving slabs with birds set in them. Her son taught her how to carve in plaster of Paris, so she could then make the moulds and then make their own concrete paving slabs
Brilliant.
and things like that. It's an amazing woman. And then there's, I mean, you can't help but see YouTube and all the amazing talent there is out there. And I do have both spiritual and business mentors that I follow online as well.
Mm. There are some amazing talents out there, and we have to ask ourselves, have we learnt the talent, or is it inherent in us? Whether you believe that you come down from spirit and you'll go back to spirit or not, but if you do, is it inherent in us from some other place, some other dimension, a past life, if you believe in those kind of things, whatever. Where do we get it from?
Very interesting that, isn't it?
Very
interesting.
It throws up loads of questions, and the answers, we almost answer them ourselves, but we need recognition. We go back to the same thing again. We need recognition of somebody outside telling us that this is so, you're thinking along the right lines, perhaps like yourself. We tweak things as we're going along, and we give you those tools to tweak them.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on that subject, a lot of things from writing on our walls, do you understand what I mean by
Yes,
that?
I do,
Yeah.
definitely.
In case of viewers don't, I'll just explain. It's
Yeah.
basically everything that is ever said to us during our lives is written on our subconscious wall.
Yes.
And because one of the things we do with emotional freedom technique is change the negative writing on the wall as well. So I mentioned money blocks earlier, which a lot of people will think that's just, I mean, a lot of people think tapping, you know, standing there going like this is rather wacky. But it's like, just put your disbelief to one side and try it, because writing on your wall is so damaging. Money blocks, something that absolutely fascinates me. Everybody has a money block, and it can be anything from like £1 to £1 million and above. But everyone will get to a stage where their subconscious tells them that that is as much money as they should have. And subconsciously, if you get more than that, you get rid of it as quickly as you can, so that you stay in your comfort zone, stay in the area that your subconscious believes you should be. Okay? So money blocks on your walls can be things like there's never enough money. Money goes out quicker than it goes in. One for me was, once you have children, you'll always be poor. And another one for me is single mums always live in poverty. They're two I've personally had to work on. And it's like, if you go back to your teenage years, children, as well as adults actually, can be very, very cruel. And I personally have had to work on a lot of writings on my wall from teachers, because I'm a slow learner. We all learn differently, and I learn by doing. And because I have a very slight hearing issue, where if there's background noise, I can't pick up on the conversation, traditional schooling really didn't work for me. So I was classed as slow and stupid. And there have been occasions in my education where I've been written off. And I've had to work on that. And you know, it sounds ridiculous, but I was in my late 20s before I realised I was intelligent, because of the writing on my wall as a child. In primary school, my parents were told at parents' evening I'd never achieve anything in life, so don't worry about it, don't push her. That I was then, you know, your parents come back from the parents' evenings. In those days, you didn't go with them. It's like, what did they say? Oh, don't worry, you're a bit slow. Don't worry, you'll never achieve anything. So my subconscious took that on and made sure that happened for a lot of years, until my mid-20s, mid to late 20s. And another thing is, I went to an all-girls school that then became a combined school, secondary school. We only did CSEs. And if you wanted to do O-levels, if anyone's old enough to remember CSEs and O-levels, you had to pay for them. And I was very passionate about English. I wasn't very good at it, but I was passionate about it. And I wanted to have a go at O-level English. So I went to the head of English and said, I'd like to do O-level English. And she said, don't waste your parents' money. And all of that is right in our walls. And if you don't clear it, it actually defines who you become.
I agree.
Mm.
The old saying is what you think you are.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you tell a person a scenario again that they're stupid from a young age, they become stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They hear it so often that it sinks within their subconscious and it's there all the time. I call it filing cabinet syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to a point whereby we know how to access the filing cabinet, and we'll all know how to do that between the positive and the negative without knowing the yin and yang, the transverse, we won't know one from another. Once we find that out, we can access the filing cabinet. The lessons that have been inherent from the negativity, we then know how to turn them into the positivity. What you've just said, and I'm trying to reiterate in a summarising way, but without that, the negative, we won't know what that positive is. So you say, and I don't wish to pick up on you, but you're saying about it's a bit wacky when you tap. Unfortunately, that people who at this moment do not understand what gifts are about there and what they have, either refer it to the new age, or spirituality, or completely crazy.
Yeah. Well, this is the great thing about emotional freedom technique because it's scientifically recognised. There are still some misunderstandings about the meridian lines, which is one of the names for the energy lines that run down our bodies, and they can actually now trace them with a scientific tool. I don't understand all of that completely. I don't pretend to understand it, but I know that they can do it. And there has actually been proof now of the meridian lines, of the energy lines of the body, like the energy lines of the earth, are actually existing, and you can dowse them as well.
It's like ley lines, and yeah, absolutely.
Basically, the
very
ley
much
lines are
into
the
that.
energy of
the
the
earth.
world and the earth,
Yeah.
and as you're familiar with, and the meridian lines are like the energy lines of the body. They're equivalent. Everything is energy. So I'm quite lucky in the fact that the field that I'm working with, the emotional freedom technique, is recognised by a lot of health professionals and a lot of scientists. And if anyone actually wants to look into that further, there are websites that you can go to.
The skeptic will say, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
The skeptic will say, and I have to look at it from all points of view here, being very impartial, we channel on something that they find that is a money maker, and we come into it. And we find that we can do it. But I have to say that without the participation of the public, or people coming for either interviews or then appointments, it wouldn't become a money maker at all, because people are not interested. So I go back to the point whereby you're saying by tapping is people look at it crazy. Yes, they may do. But they look at the power of thought crazy too, and they do it every day of their lives. What you think you are. If you think something strongly enough and the intention is there, no matter what religious denomination you may be from, it will happen. We know that through healing, absent healing. And I'm sure you know that as well, whereby then if we have a friend or an acquaintance or someone closer to us who is going through things at this moment, we give out the thoughts, and collectively those thoughts are very powerful. Even individually they have the power. So nothing is by chance, and I'm sure you know that and everything else, but I just reiterate for the viewers, because we have to look at the full picture and everything here. So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. If I could just say something on that, there's two things I'd like to say. One is a quote. Unfortunately, I can't remember the man who originally wrote the verse, but it's just one sentence out of it, and it's, if you believe you can't, and if you believe you can, you're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that quote.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well is part of my, as I mentioned earlier that I grew up as a pleaser, I want to make everyone happy, and that's something that I carried with me until I was diagnosed with what the doctors like to label clinical depression. I have a very interesting 2 years then, working through that. And I came out the other side and started to learn about who I am and actually making myself happy, which is a lifelong journey. But one of the things from that I have learned, and as a therapist I've had to relearn, is I can't make everybody happy and I can't make people well. I can only offer my services. And there will always be haters who will be against religion, will be against spirituality, will see certain types of healing and channeling as voodoo, devil work, that type of thing. And I'm not here to convince those people. I'm here to help the people that are open-minded and are ready to be helped.
You're here to give people the tools so they can find out themselves.
But only when they're ready.
Absolutely, you can't force anybody. It's the scenario, you can take a camel to the water, but you can't make it drink.
Exactly. One of the hardest things I had to learn was some of the people you love the most, so the ones, and you know you can help them with the tool you've got, are the ones you have to accept are not ready. My mother was always open to try anything that I could offer her, and it really deepened our relationship. But she is actually the only family member that I have worked on, or worked with, I should say. But I accept that my other family members and my other friends are not ready for the same journey.
I gave my dad spiritual healing, auric healing actually, and hands-on, when he was going through certain things before his hip operations. Bearing in mind he had 3 operations in 18 months, which didn't do his health much good because there's no recovery time or anything, or not a lot. But he knew what I did, and he knew what I was about, and I came from a Christian background, the same as yourself, but it was a bit more of a conformist, whereby I went through the confirmation and baptism and all the rest of it. The Sunday schools in those eras was on. But having said that, all tools lead you to giving you the information to make up your own mind. Unfortunately, with anything, that let's label it the new age, because it's an awakening that's coming along, and we can put everything in one. It makes it a lot easier, that's all, for the listeners, for the viewers and the listeners. As it's coming along here, I mean, we get the choice to make up our own minds. Some people, unfortunately, through control and dogma, and I don't mean physically, I mean mentally here, don't want to rock any boats. But you'll always get that in life. I don't really like the word haters, but I know what you're saying here. I'd turn that word round here, and I just say the choices are yours, whatever you make. Whether you make that choice now, you've made it already, or sometimes in the future, it makes no difference. Because there's a lot bounded about today if you are religiously minded, and we're not talking about spiritually minded here, because there's a great difference between the two. You'll make that choice when you want to do that. It's up to you, the same as we all do. But it's so nice that you've explained a situation which is quite personal to yourself right at the beginning, and it throws back the questions now that you have just answered, and you give the viewers the choices to make it, and that's really good.
I was just going to say, just going back to the word haters, if I could explain why I use that word, because the word hate to me and the word haters are 2 separate words. Right. The word hate I don't use. I grew up with the belief that if you hate somebody, that's a deep emotion, you're willing to kill them. And I know a lot of people don't feel like that, but I still feel like that, and I don't carry any hate for anybody, no matter what they do, because the only person it damages at the end of the day would be me.
Absolutely.
But where the word haters come from, which I see as a completely different word, is I do a lot of work online, as you're aware, on Skype, whether it be with video or without video. I work both ways. And I also work on, there's a Facebook app called Facebook Messenger that your viewers may not be familiar with. You can also do video calls and voice calls on there anywhere in the UK, in the world, free of charge. And I use both of those tools. Now, because I do a lot of work online, I do a lot of studying online, I follow a lot of people online, both for my own training, both in business and my spiritual training and my emotional freedom technique training. A lot of that is online, progression. And what happens is when you're putting yourself online all the time, I used to do videos, I've stopped, but I'm going to start doing the videos once a month in the near future again. You get, like you've mentioned, negative comments, and the more presence you have online, the more unpleasant the comments get. And one of the people I follow, a chap called Brendan Bouchard, which is a business chap I follow him for business training, gets a lot of what he terms as haters, and he says, I don't bother reading those comments. He reads the thousands and thousands of comments he gets on YouTube for his videos, but he says, I'll always get people, he says, I get hashtag douchebag, and he said, and that's a pleasant one. And he gets some really quite nasty comments, and he's just in service as well, just out there helping people build their business and get their message out so that they can help people. And that's where the term haters comes from. It's an online term of all the negative and unpleasant
I'm sure
comments we get.
I'm sure that a lot of the viewers will. I'm not very technically minded, because most of my work, as I've told you, is face to face, and whether it be public speaking or lecturing in something or taking groups or whatever it happens to be, most of it is one-on-one, and apart from the things that I do and I give back. But having said that, then it's so nice to understand that we have a lovely lady like yourself here at the moment, and you're open. The word open today is bandied about, and it's been given lip service really, because people don't realise what that word means. To make it quite simple, if you go into a church, shall we say, and whatever is over the front of the doors as you go through the church is how you're going to be dictated to. You can't be open unless you're dictated to everything, and not dictated to. You can accept everything here, and what you're saying here is not, you're not dictating and you're not controlling. What you're saying is you're giving people tools. Yes. And that's the main thing that not only this programme is about, but we collectively, and most people that are involved in, I'm thinking of Heather Roberts now and people like that who are involved in the same kind of things that you are, give people tools to do these things.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Heather coming next month, because she's either the ambassador or president of the Alzheimer's situation, which you just talked about, and we can give a cheque for about £1,300 to them next month. So
well done.
But having said that, then she just popped into my mind, so just but not only her, but all people who do that. Let me take you back a few steps if I can here. You say about affairs, and you do halls, and you have halls. So, if somebody came to you and said, could you actually do me Indian head massage? That wouldn't be online.
No.
No,
I've only recently started doing the Indian head massage again, because obviously working online is not something I can do. I haven't got the tools where I can have Skype and have the metal hand the other end of the massage. I'm sure the time will come we can do that.
I'm sure.
But it's not here yet. This last year I've got more involved with the Community Arts Project, which is a not-for-profit in Suffolk. And when their EFT practitioner left to work elsewhere, I said, could I come in her space? They have a white room where they practice therapies upstairs. And they said, yeah, brilliant. So I've had customers from the past say to me, and new customers actually as well, could you give me an Indian head massage, because I've got a reputation, because I did the fairs for a while doing the Indian, and I do a light touch, which is very healing, very relaxing. And I channel as well as I'm doing the Indian head massage. It's very difficult for me not to channel when I'm giving the treatment. So I've put it back on in my insurance, so I'm only really now offering it again, and it has to be in person, so I do that from the bank in Eye, and I will do it at events as well, but it's not the therapy that I push the most, it's just so that I can offer it if people really want it. Personally, I believe the greatest tool I have is the emotional freedom technique. Healing is fantastic, as you know yourself, but again, the Indian head massage and the healing, if I was working with you and I gave you either healing or Indian head massage today, once you've gone home, unless you're somebody that's qualified yourself in those therapies, I've not given you anything you can use to combat the stress in your life. Yeah, and to stop overwhelm. With the emotional freedom technique, you learn the tapping points. And my idea is, and what I tell my customers is tap at home. So if you're on your computer and you open your emails and you've got 200 emails coming in a couple of hours, which happens, and you think, I've got 10 minutes, I cannot do this, and you feel the overwhelm building up, you start tapping. You don't have to do the whole round, but just tap on a couple of the points. As you're looking at these emails, it'll bring the stress levels back down again. So that's why I'm not really pushing the Indian head massage or the healing so much these days, because it's a one-off treatment, or they have to keep coming to me for a top-up.
I'm very much aware that I might sound quite wacky now, but I don't take anything. I don't take fools lightly, no disrespect, but I don't take anything on board either. I know how to work my energies over many years. I know how to give the intention of thought and make it happen. And I think we all try to portray that to people, to say that whatever I have, you have. Whatever I can do, you can do. And going back to what you said there, and I can't remember too much about it, forgive me, and about the can't bit and can bit you quoted. And not about the interview, don't worry about that.
You'll find out.
But having said that, then if you tell yourself something, you will be, and you can do it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a tool that we all, in solitude and isolation, that we use. I remember when I went with the monks and I did the isolation for a while. It was going to be a lot longer, but unfortunately I was called in to take somebody's funeral, so I had, on the way back I did that. But I remember in isolation, you look back at yourself, and if you don't address things that are there, that come to the forefront, and we all do this, it becomes a stressful situation whereby, because we've relied on people for so long, that yes, we miss the physical person, of course we do, but someone else has taken the responsibility of us. And I think it's very hard in life today, whereby when people are so close together in their lives, when one person passes to spirit, I won't say death because I don't believe there is a death, only physical. And you said we are just this, just energy, and we wear this veil, if you like, this cloak of physical. But I feel that when one person goes, we've relied on them so much that it becomes a devastating effect. And that has a remarkable opinion with me, whereby it just devastates the life of the subconscious to start with. So that filing cabinet, we're talking about, if you like, or I was talking about,
Mhm.
will never be able to open,
Mhm.
even though, and as you rightly said, that is not the time to give people techniques of how they can improve themselves through relaxation, if you like.
Mhm.
And forgive me, I can't remember what you call it, but there's no way we can empower people when they're going through that stressful situation. So going back in our lives, if we all had the space of isolation within, like you did, to get to where you are now, with all due respect,
Mhm.
I did. Not that I did it for that reason, but I did it because of, unfortunately, after a 32-year-old marriage, things, you know, I mean, children leave home. I mean, my youngest now is 36, so it's long. But having said that, you know, I did that, and that's a new way of life. But the isolation was there, so the only person to rely on was yourself. So you have to look at issues that are there because they come to the forefront whether you need it or not, like you.
I can see where you're coming from with that. And I think, I mean, for us in particular, yes, if things, and with my work, it's the things that come to the forefront that need to be released and need to be looked at. But if we look at society in general, the majority of people don't. They might dwell on it, they might ponder it, but they're more likely to find these things that come to the forefront during their isolation, whether it's because a loved one has passed over, or find it actually quite crippling, emotionally and physically. And that's when they're going into that overwhelm. They're having all of this stuff come up. They don't have the tools. They haven't ever learned to be self-reliant, and the isolation isn't an isolation that's provoking them to look at themselves, but to crumble instead.
I can see exactly where you're coming from for that, no doubt. I think maybe that we were talking on the same thing, but there's cross purposes a bit here. What I meant is that when you have an isolation, you'd have no choice, but those things come to the forefront because of the situation here. That's when your choices kick in from there. And then the more you are isolated without being given some instruction to how to move forward, yes, the worse it can become. And you're into a stage whereby you're not bound to empower yourself at all, but the direct opposite. That takes us back to that, when we know the direct opposite, if we can recognise that and someone gives us the tools to recognise that, how we could work and change that round is exactly what we've been talking about all the interview. And I find it so uplifting because we've explained it, or you've explained it, my dear, you've explained it so well for the viewers so they will understand this. And I have to reiterate again and say, the comments you will get back will be at least 75 and 25. So you will get back some negative thing, but you'll get the answers from people which is on a positive note because they've seen this here. Okay, and that's so nice here. Okay. Before we go any further here, and I did tell you that the time is, don't worry about the time.
Of the essence.
But before we go any further here, I did say to you about, we will go back to, you talked about Christian faith, and you talked about the influence with your mum, and bless her. I'd like to just touch on the influence of maybe, or the choices you had to make coming through a Christian faith, being brought up like that. How do you think that determined your way of thinking?
Okay, I wasn't actually brought up as a Christian as such. My father doesn't believe in anything, and my mother had her own spiritual beliefs and thoughts, which she kept to herself mainly. Mum and I chatted sometimes, but mainly she kept them to herself. But what my oldest brother and I had is every Sunday we went to Sunday school, and Mum got stuck into the housework. Apparently you can hoover a lot quicker without the kids about. So a lovely lady across the road used to dutifully take us to Sunday to church. And
Well, we all did,
Sunday
didn't
school.
we? That's what we did.
And within Sunday school, you know, you're at a very vulnerable age where, you know, up pre-6 and a little bit after, where you're absorbing everything that you are surrounded by and everything that you hear. And I took on board that if it wasn't Christian, it was the devil's making. But
Which we were told.
yeah, but as I, not when I initially left home at 19, but as I went out more into the world and explored more, things would jump out at me and I would learn more. So I did my Hare Krishna bit, and I looked into Buddhism and lots of different religions, followed some of them, born again Christian, clappy hands, all of that type of thing. And the conclusion I've come to in all the studies I've done, and I know you said that you studied religion as well, is really, you know, religions, they're all the same. They're all got good in them, and it's how the people that read them decide to translate them that brings out the disharmony in the world through religions. So I now class myself as a spiritual person. I believe there is an energy. It took me a long while to release those things of childhood, thinking that, you know, tarot cards were dangerous and that type of thing. But as we go through life, all of the tools we need are put in front of us. Whether we decide to see them or not is up to us. And when I said before that in 2007, when I trained in Indian head massage, it started a journey. And one of the things that happened during that time is Mum already had her Alzheimer's disease attacking her brain, and I was spending some time as her companion, taking her out and about so she could still do all the things she did before without Dad, but she couldn't drive and would sometimes lose where she was, lose her bearings. And we were in Stowmarket and we popped into a lovely little shop called Rainbow's End that isn't there anymore, and I met a lady who's now one of my best friends called Karen Wilding. I started to practice Indian head massage there and healing, and Karen is a tarot reader, a psychic, and she gave me my first tarot reading, and it was because I trust and love her so much that I trusted she would never do anything that would harm me, and I just took it from there, and I learned about tarot cards and angel cards, and I prefer angel readings personally and angel tarot. That's what I use for my own guidance. Don't do readings for other people. I have reasons for that. But I had an experience in my 20s. I had a friend who had serious health issues, who had done drugs as a young man, and he had messed with tarot and had a very bad experience, which I won't go into because that's his personal history. But he was actually the son of my dear friend Norma, who I mentioned earlier. And his experience of tarot sort of compounded my fear of it. But that was because he was messing with it, hadn't learned how to use it properly, hadn't learned how to ground and connect, and was messing with illegal drugs at the same time. And that draws all sorts of energies in.
At the end of the day, then, you can't put the two together.
No.
And unfortunately, there is a difference. With spirituality, you just need to go outside and be in the open.
Exactly.
With religion, you have a control that is there, always has been. So I will differ to what you're saying there. If people know what the two mean completely and they have a look at the two, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in today. But they don't. It's control and dogma through the. We are only talking about 2,350 years ago. Before that, tarot was about. They didn't call it tarot, but they called it whatever. It was a lot of it was bones, runes. That was there long before Christianity came along, or any religious denomination. And bearing in mind that as the viewers will know, because I lecture on religion, they'll know that through the Roman paganists, that first Pope Constantine I, he was the one who adapted it and wanted to get the people on this inside. So we have to put certain things in there, and it's been taught from school, which is, viewers know that they can get the truth and they can see it, or give them the tools where they get it from. All the things that have been adapted from other civilizations, whether it be Egyptian, Mayas, Aztecs, they all do the same, and that's from right the way through from the Ten Commandments, which has been adapted, which weren't the Ten Commandments. They said nothing about going up a mountain, I can assure you. And also about Immaculate Conception. That's happened before. It was just taken, we needed to get the people on the side, and ever since then it's been controlled.
Well, virgin had a different meaning in those days as well. Virgin didn't have the same meaning as it has now, and they've taken the same word and used it as a modern concept, and it completely changed.
At the end of the day, that's what people have been brought up on. And unfortunately, I feel it very sad, especially when a lot of lovely people have given their lives to a situation that, quite honestly, if you want me to knuckle down to it, has been a lie. I am not saying there wasn't a certain man called Jesus, because there was.
Yes.
He was very spiritual. Not a religious bone in his body. And unfortunately, because the pagans put him on a tree, not a cross actually, put him on a tree, they did to a lot of criminals, and he was a criminal in their eyes because he presumed to be the king of the Jews. And he was taken as a threat. And that was it.
But how, going back to religions, how I look at it is, it's a well-known fact that human beings need to feel they belong.
Absolutely, yes.
And whether
I agree.
you want to belong to a group which is your local bowls club, or your local community
I know
club,
where you're going, yeah.
or whether it be a religion,
Absolutely.
it's belonging to a group.
It is.
And I won't judge anyone because they belong to a group, whether it be a religion, bowls club, or
You don't.
You judge them by their own energy, their personality, and the love.
I don't judge people, and I'm not judging them there. But by giving people the tools, they have a choice. I just feel personally it's sad when something is dictated, whether it be religion or anything else, and dictated over so many years that you eat, sleep and breathe it. And that can be anything. I've been doing what I've been doing for many, many years. In the last 15 years, or no, 10 years probably, well, whatever, I got more into public speaking and addressing. But I have a lot of strings to my bow, and I think people need to, the more strings they have, the better they will find themselves, because then the better the decisions and the choices they have.
Taking that to a lighter subject, food. You're talking about how people do something time and time again and it's dictated to them. And brain health is something I'm very passionate about for obvious reasons. And something
Don't look at me, Jan. Brain health.
One of the things that's come to light to me in the last year is how we eat a high carbohydrate diet. And there's been all this stuff about wholemeal bread and wholemeal pasta and wholemeal rice. And we're in a predominantly carbohydrate diet. And that's actually the worst thing you can do for your brain. Because one of the things you need to do for good brain health is actually to have an even blood sugar. And I was talking to my chiropractor about this recently, because I've almost cut carbohydrates out of my diet, certainly wheat, because I had issues with my blood sugar going whoop, choom, and that's really dangerous. And she said that some studies that she looked at, so I'm surrounded by people that are constantly learning, actually said that one slice of wholemeal bread releases more sugar into the body than a glass of fizzy drink. And if you think how McDonald's and Kentucky Fried and all of these things have come into our country as a natural way of eating, and the children are having their fizzy drinks and their burger in a bun full of carbohydrates, and then we're putting them in a box. I know I'm digressing here, but then we're putting them in a box and we're expecting them to behave themselves and be quiet. Yet they're hyped up on sugar from the wheat and from the fizzy drinks and the sugar.
I agree totally.
And it's sort of like society's changing, and it's all like, you've got to sit still, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. You can't expect them to. And I know that's changing and digressing from what we were saying, but I think it's quite an important thing to think about.
Yeah,
and
I
it
know.
just floated into my mind.
I mean, I've been a pescatarian for 30 odd years. I eat fish, only because I was a fisherman and there's more fish in waste in that. But I'm vegetarian, and I will have pasta now and then. I will have a whole meal now and then. But apart from that, at the end of the day, then in my book, viewers know that I used to be a poacher. And I used to go out and shoot these things and kill these things and do all these things. I can't do it now, but that's not the point. The point was that wherever you are today, whatever you've been through has got you to where you are.
Oh yeah.
I have to say that we have run over on time. So
that's us talkers.
And that's a pleasure to talk to you. So I have to say, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And no doubt that any information that you need will go onto the credits, emails, etc., that needs there. Any visual arts you need put on, then you can email straight, rather than using me, straight to the TV, Felixstowe TV. And I say thank you very much, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.